Welcome to Meet the Author Live from book publisher New Degree Press, or NDP. NDP is part of Manuscripts Inc., and I'm your host, John Saunders. This enterprise has published authors from 6 continents and ranked 293rd on the Inc. 5000 list. This is the fastest growing privately held companies in America. If you think you have a book in you or want to start or accelerate your movement in the next 12 to 15 months, visit manuscripts.com now. The next cohort starts this winter. This is a comprehensive coaching program that will take you from idea to published book. Not just published, but published like a second-time author, which includes audience activation and creation. Meet the Author Live is an opportunity to learn everything valuable there is to know about the author in addition to their book. Plus, we can answer your questions live in the chat. So as you have them, please do drop them in the chat, and we're happy to answer those as we go in our 30 minutes here together. Today I have with me Tom Weirich, and we'll chat about his just-released book, We Took the Risk, the stories behind the early risk takers in the U.S. renewable energy industry and the leadership traits that made them a success. We'll talk about his success as a #1 trending new bestseller on Amazon, the partnerships he's made with local independent bookstores, and what's next for him as he continues his national book launch tour. Tom's a key facilitator, connecting pivotal players in the global renewable energy industry for now over 18 years and working with teams on numerous renewable energy transactions across various technologies. He currently heads marketing for North America at EDP Renewables, the 4th largest owner and operator of renewable assets globally. He's an award-winning marketing leader in this sector. He's also a frequent panel moderator and speaker, an OpEd contributor focusing on innovation, entrepreneurship, and market opportunities surrounding the U.S. clean energy transition. Tom, great to see you. Welcome to the show, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much, John. Good to see you too.
How does it feel to have your name out there with a book on the cover?
It's still very surreal. I'm here actually in San Francisco after coming off of a great launch, West Coast book launch last night, where we had over 80 guests who joined together to celebrate the book launch. And it's just very surreal, right? And it's very surreal to be asked for a signature, right, and an autograph of books, right? But it feels great, and I think we'll go into the story of why I wrote the book in a bit. But it just feels good that I was able to get the book out there, and that it's really inspiring a lot of people to look at renewables in a whole new way.
Such an incredible story. And for those who don't know, I interviewed Tom for the New Degree Press podcast. His episode just released a few days ago, and you can see that on the creator community on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you consume podcasts out there. So Tom, why don't we start with that question? Why the heck did you write this book?
Yeah,
you're a busy guy. Like, what are you doing?
I was going to say, right, why did I do this crazy thing of writing a book, right? Well, basically 2 things happen, and it's funny how life works out. So I was initially writing an op-ed for a mentor of mine, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Holmberg, who had passed away about 3 to 4 years ago. And, I'm not one of those that looks back at mistakes in the past and regrets them. But, this was one of those mistakes where I wish I didn't miss his funeral, which I did. He deserved a lot better for me. And so I decided, well, let me, on the anniversary of his death, write a book, or write an op-ed rather, on his life, on how he contributed to the biomass and biofuels industry in the U.S. And so I started interviewing a number of CEOs in the biomass and biofuels industry who were his interns during his career, right? And getting all these interesting stories about, the trials and tribulations they went through to get the biomass and biofuels industries up and going here in the U.S. And so that was one thing that was going on the side. And the other, on the other side of things, a professor of mine, Eric Kester, who's at the Georgetown University at the School of Business, McDonough School of Business, set up this Creator Institute, right, and this program to really inspire a whole new set of authors, first-time authors out there in the market. And he had been after me for about 4 years, and I kept on declining, saying, listen, he's like, you have a story to tell about renewables. I'm like, I have a job. I just don't have the time. I'm a horrible writer. Marketing's ruined me. I can do bullets. I can do PowerPoint slides. I can do ad copy, but I cannot, do long form writing. And he's like, no, you really can. And so I kind of pushed him to his side for about 4 years. I had many friends that I recommended to take the program. They all launched books. And through them, I think I got the confidence to say finally to Eric yes, when he had approached me actually the same week that I started writing this op-ed, right? So it's kind of fortuitous. And his outreach kind of to me was almost like a sign from Bill going, hey, you need to do this. And so I kind of said, okay, loud and clear, got the mission. Let me write this book. And so that's kind of how it came all together. It's just funny looking back that it just perfectly worked out that way.
It's unbelievable, the journey that you've been on. And now you have this book out there. And what I love about it is it has so many nuanced stories and layers to it. And we talk about these in great length in the podcast episode, but love to give people a little bit of a taste of what it's about, because, you talked about this sort of homage to this great man that was a mentor to you and helped this industry get off the ground. But what is it, give folks a little bit of a taste of what the book is about and how you went about that journey.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I didn't want the book just to be a compilation of stories of people's backgrounds, or, I kind of jokingly say it's not a glorified LinkedIn profile for everybody, right? I wanted to kind of weave in their stories, the lessons they learned, but also focusing on the traits they exhibited. And funny enough, when I interviewed over 100 executives for the book, and the most gut-wrenching thing was to narrow it down to 25. I mean, we're an industry that's really blessed, I would say, with numerous risk takers who came into this industry in the early days to get it going, and upon whose shoulders we've really built today's industry on. And so, I think focusing on the traits was really interesting, because people have asked me, well, the chapters are actually written by trade, right, and categorized by trade. And I basically funneled individuals and executives into those chapters based on traits. And many people have asked me, well, did the individuals actually tell you, hey, my superpower, my trait was grit, right, or persistence, or audacity, right? And the funny enough thing is, no, but they all kind of revealed to me, through the interviews, what their super trait was and what really got them to where they are today, and what got them, to persist in the industry. So, the book is basically written up into three phases, or three sections, right? The first section kind of giving you the context of the early days of renewables, when I started in renewables, right? Also the history of renewables, to give you a better context against which these executives worked against, right? With the ups and downs of an industry that was relying on tax incentives and things like that, and environmental concerns, right? And then the second part of the book is all about these executives, these 25 executives that I've categorized by their superpower, by their trait, right? And then the last section is actually the call to risk, and how we should be risk takers, and how we need to actually go back to our roots as an entrepreneurial risk-taking industry. And in order to get to the next phase of this energy industry evolution, right, take the risk again. I mean, that's the call to action here, is no matter where you are in your career, if you're coming into the industry new, if you've been in the industry like I have for, over 18 years, right? Or if you're someone looking back and figuring out, can I still make an impact in the industry? The answer is yes. We still all have the ability to make an impact no matter where you are in the supply chain of the industry. So that's kind of what the book's about. I mean, I can go into a number of stories, right? But it was really, truly fascinating to have the privilege and honor, really, of sitting back with people like John Cavalier, right? Who having an hour of his time, I don't even want to know what he bills, right? But having that opportunity to talk to like the godfather of Wall Street and talk about the initial IPOs of the industry, right? Or having a chance to sit down with someone like Tracy LeBeau, who has had such an impact on development of renewables on Native American lands, right? Or, speaking to somebody like, Dan Sugar, who is a technologist who actually is tied to the advancement of solar technology here in the US, and especially in Silicon Valley. I mean, it was just really an honor and privilege to be able to sit back, recollect on what they did right, and also recollect on some of the lessons they have for people who are looking to get into the industry, right? And wanting that like Cliff Notes version of, hey, what do I need to know before I sit down for an interview? So, yeah.
So many incredible lessons and stories in the book. I think one thing that I hear a lot is, people think, how did you get this access to all these folks, right? They're not your friends. They're not people you could just have their cell phone number for. And that's a big part of the journey, right? Not just telling your own story, but weaving it with other folks and these experts in the industry. Like, how did you gain that access?
I credit it to my first boss in renewables, Mike Eckhart. So when I started at the American Council on Renewable Energy close to 19 years ago, one of my first tasks, so I sat down, I was new to renewables, and one of the first things Mike told me to do for my first week at the office was he gave me a list of 25 executives and said, I want you to sit down and interview all 25 executives and learn about the industry, and get their advice as to, how they got to where they got to, and then leave the call asking for 3 additional contacts they recommend I reach out to, right? And unbeknownst to me, what he was gifting me with was my initial Rolodex in renewables, right? And that's my biggest advice to folks is, if you're starting this industry, all these outreach efforts are actually worthwhile, because this is a Rolodex that's going to be with you for the rest of your life, right? There's going to be a Rolodex of mentors, a Rolodex of business partners, a Rolodex of job opportunities, right, in the future, the whole thing. And so he gifted me, I think, Mike, by making me do that exercise as a 23-year-old, right, basically gifted me this opportunity of building out a Rolodex that's, honestly with me for the rest of my life. And so many of these folks, like you mentioned, actually they are friends now, they are colleagues now. And we are a tight industry, even though we're an industry that's expanding, that's hiring tons of people. The core group is still together. And it's amazing how, even when I wrote the book, all these executives I interviewed, they all were interconnected. There was no 7 degrees of separation. It was more like 1 to 2 degrees of separation. Many of these executives helped finance each other's ventures. Many of them were advisors on each other's boards and so forth. And so that's kind of how I started the Rolodex. And then, as people know, I'm not a wallflower. And being in marketing and sales, right, I went out there and I wasn't gutsy. I asked questions. I put myself out there. And I think that's a big lesson for anyone coming into this industry is just put yourself out there. We are an industry that wants to support each other and an industry that really wants everyone to succeed. So I think that's one of the biggest values this industry has is we all are rooting for each other to succeed. And, and that's kind of the lesson coming out of this is be audacious, reach out, get to know folks in this industry and get started from day one.
What I love about your story is clearly a focus on renewable energies, which is great, and energy independence and job creation, right? Which I think
Correct.
No matter what your background is in America, I think we can all get behind those two things, right? And what's fascinating about your book is it has so many lessons just about career and business development, which is really, really cool. And I don't think most people are going to buy your book thinking there's going to be all these great nuggets on those things, but there absolutely are, which is, I think, brilliant. And I love this exercise that this gentleman gave you to reach out to 25 executives when you're 23 years old. And these weren't people inside the firm you were working for.
No, not at all. These were people across all finance, policy, technology development, right? I mean, across the whole venture, right? And it gave me that taste of the cross section of renewables all as a 23-year-old. Yeah.
I mean, what fantastic advice for any industry, I think, for anyone starting out their career. And what a great way. I mean, you've been writing this book for 20 years, buddy.
Well, and my point, and I made this point last night here in San Francisco, it was not written by me, it was written by us. I would have nothing to write about if it wasn't for these original risk takers who we've really built this industry on their backs, right? And it was really an honor to be able to write and document these histories. And I think that's something that makes this book unique. I collaborated with over 8 other authors who have written amazing works in renewables already. And, no one had taken, the time to really write this kind of book. And so it's not perfect. Of course, I missed out on hundreds of people, especially on the technology side, but, it's a start. And I think that's where I'm kind of at peace with it. It's not the most poetically written book, but it's a start. And, my hope is that it does inspire people. And it no matter where you are in your career, to really make that impact and take the risk.
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit here, my friend, but I appreciate the humble nature of your approach to this. Yeah. So you mentioned you're in San Francisco for a book tour.
Correct.
Let's give folks a little bit of a taste of what this book tour has been like for you so far.
Oh, yeah.
Where have you been? Who are you talking to?
Oh, gosh. So this is, I'm 50% of the way through, right? So I started out in New York. So I am a New Yorker by birth and by upbringing. So it was great to come home to New York about 3 weeks ago. And I actually had a book launch there. I've been very fortunate to be underwritten by a good friend of mine, Mona Dejani, and her business partner, who's the other global co-chair of energy, Alina Teplinsky. And so Pillsbury, the law firm, has been very generous in sponsoring these events. Here in San Francisco, I also partner with the Clean Tech Leaders Roundtable and Andrea Luck and Kennedy Looper to really pull together folks to really celebrate these risk takers. So the New York event went really well. We had about 60 participants there, mostly from the investment banking sector, to celebrate that event. We have Fireside Chat, where I basically interview some of the risk takers that I feature in the book. So we had that in New York. We had 4 of those folks, including John Cavalier and Claire Boydo Johnson, which was truly a pleasure. And then what we did was here in San Francisco, we had another Fireside Chat with Ira Ehrenpreis, who is famous for being the one who got Tesla IPO'd. Famous venture capitalist Matt Cheney, who is actually on Acor's Firstborn, I've known forever and ever, and Wendell and Holland, who actually was part of the first commercialization team at the U.S. Department of Energy, actually under George W. Bush, who really got commercialization started, and the national laboratories really talking about, okay, what are those products on the shelves that we should get out there and commercialize in the market? So these have been great opportunities for people to come together. Also, these Fireside Chats have been great opportunities to really expose things that a lot of us didn't know about that was going on in the background in this industry. And yeah, so I'm getting ready for the next stop, which will be Washington, D.C. I spent 17 years in Washington, so it'll be a kind of a coming home reunion there. We have about 120 guests there, and the Solar Energy Industries Association is hosting me alongside with McDermott, Will and Emery, and 2 partners there, Chris Gladback and Ed Zelke, as well as an amazing PR firm called Silverline Communications, headed up by a dear friend, Laura Taylor. So that's going to be DC on November 9th. And then the last stop on this tour, and I need a T-shirt made. I was just saying the other day, I need a T-shirt made of the tour on the, with all the pictures
All
of the
the
tour,
cities.
all the cities and the dates and all that. But yeah, the last stop will be back to where I am now, where I live now, which is Houston, Texas, which is obviously the capital of energy in the U.S. We have over 230 guests coming to that event, which is underwritten by Pillsbury, by Capgemini. Dear friend of mine, Althea, there is hosting on behalf of Capgemini and her team, as well as Ally Energy, which is an organization dedicated toward workforce diversity and development in the energy sector, and again, Silverline Communications. So it's really been amazing how I've really been humbled that when I came out with this book, so many people came out of the woodwork and said, "How can I help you?" It's truly been humbling. I did not have to pitch for anything. Just people came to me and said, "Hey, I believe in what you did. How can I help you?" And it's been great also partnering with a number of nonprofits that are instrumental in developing the next generation of leaders. So I've also done, through a generous donation from an anonymous donor, I've also donated a number of books to the Clean Energy Leadership Institute and their team. And they're, of course, gathering together the leaders for for this 21st century renewable energy industry. Also, RISE has a solar fellowship that they've partnered on with Grid Alternatives. So I donated books to the 2022 Solar Fellows there. There are these young, talented women across all segments of the solar industry, right, that are really helping challenge where we go with the industry. And last but not least, I've partnered with ACOR, their accelerator program, which basically helps to coach startups and startup leaders from marginalized communities who are actually going to be contributing to the diverse fabric of this industry, right? So it's really been truly an amazing journey, and a lot of good has really come out of this. And I think that's where people ask me, how do you keep on going? Having a tough global job plus doing this, and I'm like, it's these moments where you look at our crowd and everyone has a story, and that's what always has really driven me in my journey in renewables, is just figuring out what is your story, how did you get here, and then how else can contribute to really benefit everybody who's trying to come in, who feels like, okay, I don't know where to begin, how do I start, right? So on there, I've gone on and on, but it's been really a great journey, and the tour ends in Houston on November 15th, and I think from there, many people have asked, are you doing the audiobook? Yes, there's an audio coming out. So there goes my holidays, but I'll be recording that in December and January, and hopefully working for a January, February launch date for that.
Yeah, I think you'll be surprised how long it takes to put the audiobook together. But I mean,
yeah,
looking at this picture of what you've done here, my friend, and holy cow, you're a busy guy. You're doing this, all this work as an executive in the industry, and yet you did all this networking and all this activation to get your book done. But what's really key about this story, and I want to help people understand, is right, creation is a powerful force. And when you can help get aligned with other people's interests and celebrate all these other folks, you can really get an enormous amount of groundswell behind yourself. You are an extraordinary case here. For those who may not know, Tom had one of the most successful pre-sale campaigns in the history of this enterprise. I think around $30,000 in pre-sale funds you raised.
Close to 28,000. I was a little shy. If I had 2 more days, I might have gotten us to 30,000. But
I was 28,000. I like to round up.
Yeah. And 651 supporters, right? I mean, and these were people who didn't see a word on a page, but believed in this. And and I think it all goes back to, I'm a big believer of karma and paying it forward. And so many of us have helped us get to where we are today. So I was just happy that this is my small way of paying it forward for so many people who helped me get into this career that I have a lifelong passion and interest in.
So cool. And Tom's book, We Took the Risk, is available now wherever you buy books online.
Plus independent bookstores. Plus, I mean, one big thing is that I had so many people email me going, listen, I don't want to support Amazon. I don't want to support Barnes & Noble. Do you have independent bookstores? So I'm really proud to say I have 5 independent bookstores across the country. Powell's in Portland, Oregon, The Strand and Shakespeare and Company in New York, Blue Willow in Houston, and a couple others that'll be coming online. But I do support independent bookstores, and I do encourage you, if you go to my website, wetooktherisk.com, and you scroll a little bit to the below the main headline, you'll see there are different links to different independent bookstores. So I do encourage you to support local bookstores that are vital cornerstones of our communities across the country.
So cool. I love that you got into Powell's. I love it's such a neat bookstore out in
it really
Portland.
is. It's gigantic. It was like as big as a Strand
block, right?
Oh yeah.
That is so cool. It looks like we might be having some technical difficulties with the chat, but And I guess that's happening today here. But so folks do want to try to drop questions there, notes for Tom, please feel free, because we're about to dive into my favorite part, the rapid fire segment, which is where we get to learn everything there is to know about everything there's to know valuable about Tom. Oh, here's a nice note from one of your listeners out there. Not only has Tom authored an amazing account of the accounting of the industry and the leaders that exist within it, he's been so mindful of sharing his knowledge with associations, with memberships that will grow the next generation of industry leaders. Tom is truly an industry leader and champion. Thank you.
Oh gosh, and I did not pay that person at all.
I was wondering. Or maybe you dropped it in there because
I dropped it in there. I dropped it. No,
it is an anonymous note. If that person wants to drop their name in there, please do. But what a great note! And,
no, thank you so much. That's means a lot.
A celebration of your work. And as I said, Tom's podcast is out. Season 5 of the Creator Community is out now on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you consume podcasts out there. So definitely go out and check out the full episode of this chat. Let's dive now into the rapid fire questions. Tom,
okay, let's get ready. Let's get ready.
Get your seatbelt on, buddy.
I was going to say, got my seatbelt on. Yeah.
I think the important one to start with, that often creates so much conflict out there, is favorite sandwich. You've lived in all these great cities with food. What's the top of the list there, buddy?
You know, it was funny. So I was giving a talk at Rice for an MBA panel 2 nights ago, and for those of you that are out there, I mean, I hadn't had a Potbelly's a wreck sandwich in like years. And I remember like years ago as a college kid, I would love that sandwich. And believe it or not, they had Potbelly's there and a wreck. And I just went for it. And oh my God, the best sandwich I've had. And I'm like, oh my God, where have you been like for the last decade? Right. So I have to say it's a wreck by Potbelly's. Hands down, probably not the healthiest thing, and I need to go on a diet. But let me tell you, that was the most satisfying sandwich I've had this
amazing
long time. Yeah.
Now I feel compelled to drive down to Potbelly's in my little town
here. You can savor it right now, right? I can just savor the taste of the wreck. Yeah, yeah.
Favorite color, Tom?
Oh, gray.
Love it. A little bit of gray on the color there on the cover of your book, which people can see behind you.
Designer did a great job. He's a guy actually in Macedonia. And also a side story, and I don't want to get you off track. My layout editor is actually based in Ukraine and is Ukrainian. And let me tell you, this book, I wish I could go into the stories of all the editors that were behind this book, because I had an amazing lineup of editors. But I have to say, I have to do a shout out to Alexander Pavlovich, who's in Ukraine right now, who was dealing with layout of my book while he was being shelled. And I cannot thank him enough. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to do a shout out to him. Yeah.
And was Georgie your cover designer?
Georgie was my cover designer. Yeah. And Nicola. And I would say, I think it was more Nicola than Georgie and Boyana, but Nicola did a great job. And, I think it personified, taking a risk, the cliff, the jumper. We changed the icon of the jumper. I had some initial feedback from a beta reader going, hey, it looks a little too much like Microsoft, 2009. Or 2000, make it a little more dynamic. So we had some feedback on the cover. So, but he did a beautiful job. I love the color scheme, the whole thing. Yeah,
the cover turned out amazingly well, and I love it.
It feels nice. It feels nice too. I actually had a marketer come up to me in New York, and she's like, "I like how the book feels, like the touch of it and the matte finish." And I was like, "Okay, I never thought about that," but but yeah, it's a lot of compliments on that.
Amazingly well, and I appreciate you sharing that story, because those who don't know, maybe people don't know, what is a beta reader? That's someone you give your content, your covers, chapters, stories to early on to get feedback to say, hey, does this make sense? What resonates with you? And the cover design is very much the same. So I love where you landed on that.
Agreed.
Let's keep going. We're
okay. Yeah. Sorry. Let's keep going.
Favorite or most memorable vacation spot?
Oh God, Amalfi Coast, Italy.
Very cool. Scariest animal?
Oh God, rhinos.
Interesting.
I hate snakes too, but rhinos, they're scary when you see them in person. Yeah.
Have you been to Africa safari?
Yes, I did an African safari, and we almost had a rhino charge us. So that's why I think of rhinos. We drove away really quickly, let me put it that way. And they can charge up to I think 50 to 60 miles an hour. They're very fast.
Fun fact, I was in Africa a little while ago, actually doing a book tour with another author. Yeah. And I learned that the animals in Africa that kill the most humans every year, do you know what it is?
Hippos.
Hippos, 6 times more than lions. And I never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Apples or bananas, Tom? Better fruit?
Oh, I like bananas.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that one. Favorite or most memorable movie?
Oh, I love The Goonies.
Love that.
80s cult classic. You can't go wrong. I was talking to 3 of my colleagues at the office who came over from, we're a Portuguese based company, and they came over from Portugal. I'm like, and I mentioned the Goonies, and they kind of looked at me. I'm like, okay, we have to start a little like collection in the office of all the cult classics, and the Goonies goes up there, with the Breakfast Club and a couple other, was it John Hughes movies? So
right.
yeah.
That is hilarious. I actually just watched that movie with my boys not long ago. They sort of felt of age to watch it now, so we watched the Goonies a month or two ago.
You have to. There's so many lessons, and everyone loves it. So
right.
Yeah.
Last photo on your phone.
Well, the San Francisco launch party last night. So
Nice.
Took a good picture with a good friend of mine, Ivy Manley, who went to grad school with me, and she honored me with coming over. So that was the last picture. Yeah.
Very cool. Favorite song to sing, Tom, with or without an audience?
Oh gosh.
We're not going to do it today. We're not going to do it.
We're not. I sing horribly, but it's more like humming, like the new Sunroof song that was like the summer song for this last year with Nikki something. It was kind of on all the radio stations, something about sunroof, and anyway, it was a summer song. That's the song I would say that comes to mind.
Love it.
Yeah. That I've on repeat. Yeah.
What is one thing that you own that you really want to you really should get rid of?
Oh God. My waffle maker, because it's not healthy, and I make way too many waffles and pancakes on Saturday mornings, and I need to actually eat fruit instead and be healthy. Yeah.
But you could do what we do: put blueberries in the waffles. But that's
or use almond flour or coconut flour. Be like be a little more adventurous and healthy, right?
Or use. I'm going to put a plug out there. Or use okra flour from Renewable.
There we go.
Actually, a San Francisco-based startup, Georgetown startup, by the way.
Oh, there we go.
You were mentioning, what is your most audacious goal now that the book is out there, my friend, for this year, the balance of this year or into 2023?
I've not been the strongest in advertising, and I really want to do a really kick-ass advertising campaign for renewables, right, with a general message. And it's something where I've seen folks, different companies and different entities really be out there with some cool ad campaigns, but I really want to do one that wins some awards. So that's kind of the next audacious move will be, convincing my bosses, at EDP Renewables, let's do a great ad campaign out there, and really let's drum up, now that the IRA has passed and that we have all this momentum behind us, let's get renewables back in front and center in all the energy dialogues and topics in Houston. So I think that's my most audacious goal. Yeah.
I love that. Can I give you a theme to consider for this
ad
campaign?
Yeah, what's the theme? Yeah.
We took the risk.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true. It's true.
I think that would be a brilliant campaign for the energy industry. I love that. You were talking about autographs before. Have you ever asked anyone for their autograph?
Oh yeah, tons of times. At Acor we sponsored. Long story short, we sponsored NASCAR with Lockheed Martin, and so I had to go to 23 NASCAR races to talk about renewable energy. And as you can imagine, the audience at NASCAR races isn't front and center thinking, okay, let's go renewables, let's go ethanol and biofuels, right? So I was basically a missionary. I was calling myself an evangelist, going out there and working in a booth and convincing people this is why it's worthwhile to think about renewables. And I stalked two or three race car drivers, and I got all their autographs. And it got to the point where they started seeing me so often that they actually would avoid me. Like 2 of them would actually see me and they would recognize me and avoid coming over to me to sign my book or sign my badge or whatever. It was really embarrassing.
Did you get the signatures?
The first 7 times I did, but then they're like, okay, no. And they're like, we'll look at my tag going, okay, it's a sponsor. Should we say no? But then they decide no. Yeah.
That is amazing. I know you got several incredible praise quotes for your book. What's one you'd like to share with our listeners today to give them a taste of what people are thinking about your book?
I was really lucky. So going back to beta readers, I had 8 phenomenal beta readers who gave me honest to God feedback, right? Saying, hey, this is where you need to tweak things, change things around. I also was very fortunate that I had over 11 early reviewers who provided praise. And, I would say I want to highlight 2. I know it's breaking the rule. You asked for 1. I think the first one is I am such a big, immense fan of Mary Powell, who's now CEO of Sunrun. I knew her from her days at Green Mountain Energy. She provided such a thoughtful and kind, I was very scared to put this book out there. I was like, okay, oh God, now I'm opening myself up to someone saying, what you wrote doesn't make sense, or hey, we're gonna sue you for fallacies or something, right? And she came back and she was the first review that reinforced, Tom, you did a good thing here. It doesn't have to be perfect. The important thing, you did it and you committed to it and you followed through, right? So That early review where she talks about how it's inspiring for future leaders just really was it was the first review that really gave me the confidence to continue with pushing this out. And then the other review, and I know you asked for one, but the other review was actually from a dear friend of mine, the former FERC Commissioner Pat Wood, who many of us in the wind industry know well. His part of his quote is like, I'm giving this to my 4 sons to show that there's multiple entry points into renewable energy. There's no one career in renewables, right? There's multiple entry points based on your passion, based on your skill sets. And that's just such an important message to put out there, is that there is no one set path into renewables. There's many. And that's really the beauty and the excitement of being in this industry. So yeah, so those are the 2 quotes. Yeah.
So cool. And I know there were many more. Thanks you for sharing those.
Yeah.
Excuse me. What would you say? What would you say to those considering writing a book at this point?
Do it. It's a lot of work. You sacrifice a lot, but on the upside of things, it is a very, I never was like a journal writer type or a diary writer type, right? But it gave me a creative room, like a creative mindset and creative room for me to think and digest things. And also, it was a great way to start the day of just gratitude, like looking back and being grateful for the relationships I engaged in, for the good work we did together in renewables, right? And it actually was a really therapeutic, especially coming out of COVID, right? It was a very therapeutic way of thinking through all that, practicing gratitude on a daily basis, and also reconnecting with folks that like 10 years ago helped me. And I haven't, Facebook and social media, you know everything that's going on in people's lives, but have you actually picked up the phone and spoken to them, right? And this gave me this amazing gift of coming back to people and saying, hey, let's get on a phone call. Let's talk. Let's see how things are going. So it really was a true exercise, I would say, in gratitude and being reflective and also just being thankful. So book writing in many ways gives you a lot of ancillary gifts and ancillary ways they can give back. And I encourage everybody, like I said, everyone has a story. It's just all about getting the story out there, right? And being able to relate to what people are going through today.
I love that Ms. Powell shared, congratulated you for actually getting it done, right? Because, right, I did the math on this, and far, far, far less than 1% of Americans publish books every year, right? I oftentimes hear people say, oh, everyone's writing a book now. It's something like 0.001%. So I think that's far from everyone. So, kudos to you for getting it done. I love that Ms. Powell recognized that it's a big deal to actually get it done. Because I remember when I wrote my book, several people reached out to me and said, John, I've been writing a book for 5 years. I've never finished it. How did you actually finish this thing? And it was really the coaching and the guidance that really helped me get through it.
100%, and accountability. And what's crazy also, another fun fact is, on average, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think an average author sells 250 books a year, right? And lifetime. And I'm approaching my 1,000th book sold, right? Which is mind-boggling. It terrifies me. I'm like, oh God, it's really out there. I can't take it back, right? But I mean, I'm just truly thankful. And I've gotten at least 25, 30 emails from people coming into the industry saying, thank you for doing this. We wanted this Cliff Notes version of who, what, when, where, why, jargon, better understanding of the historical context that you all have worked under. And it really, those emails, let me tell you, that's what powers me every day. Yes, I'm tired today from last night, but the reason I wanted to be on here today and do this with all of you is, just to spread the word. And I think all of us, we all work at companies where we have book clubs, right? We all work at affinity groups where we're trying to inspire folks. Many of us work with organizations that are promoting STEM education, especially in inner city schools. This book is meant to be a helpful guide to really help inspire that next generation. Please reach out. If there's organizations that need this book, I still have some books for donation from the anonymous donation I received, right? So if you're part of a group out there who's looking for a donation of books to inspire this next generation of folks, please do reach out. And you can reach out to me on my website. You'll see a form on there, a contact form, and I'll be good to follow up with you. But definitely encourage us all to take a risk. And we all have a job here to really spread the word on this great industry.
So many great thoughts and lessons in here. One more question for you, my friend, and then there's a couple in the chat I want to make sure we get to. So we're going to wrap up here in just a few minutes, folks. If you have questions for Tom or comments, please do drop them in the chat. Last one for you, Tom. Describe your writing journey in 5 words. Doesn't have to be a sentence.
In 5 words. Oh, this is a tough one. A seriously amazing roller coaster.
Wow. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, okay, 4 words. That was in 4 words. Yeah.
As we shared, Tom's book is available wherever you buy books online at a number of local independent bookstores, including Powell's and Portland. I love that. I have a T-shirt from that store from my visit up there a couple of years ago. Go out and get a copy of his. And if you know someone thinking about their career, about a career in the industry or in the industry and wanting to learn more about it, go out and get a copy and share it with your friends. It's a fantastic story, and definitely check out Tom's full version episode on the creator community, which is available now on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. So we do have a question in the chat here I want to throw up on the screen. From another, we're not getting the names for some reason, but what aspect of the solar distributed generation business excites you, Tom?
So as somebody who really knows me, so I actually came to EDP Renewables through an acquisition of a distributed generation business, and my heart really is in distributed generation, just because I feel that when we're talking about equitable access to clean and reliable renewable energy, right? It is about the urban centers just as much as it is about rural centers, right? And when you think about community solar, I think what excites me the most is community solar plus storage, and partnering with off-takers that provide electricity to low to moderate income housing, right? When I think about renewables and where we can create the most good and best impact, is those people who live paycheck to paycheck, who cannot, due to inflationary issues or anything like that, they can't pay for an increase in electricity, right? It comes down to, do I pay to heat my house or do I put food on the table, right? And these are the people I feel that we really need to focus on and helping with, with development of accessible renewables, right? So I feel community solar and partnering with off-takers that provide powering of low to moderate income housing is the most exciting part of DG, and we do so much good by doing it, and goodwill. And for me, DG is a no-brainer. Like, every warehouse, every strip mall should have solar on their rooftop. No one sees it. Interconnection's easy because you're already on the grid, and it's just a no-brainer. So I feel that's what excites me the most. I would say community solar is where I see the future moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, and thanks for the question from our friends in the chat here. Tom, last thoughts for our listeners out there that you want to leave with them, and we'll wrap it up here.
It's easy. Take the risk, right? Life is not worth living if you don't take a risk here and there. All of us have failed at one point. It's been one question that I've asked during my fireside chats is, tell us about one time you failed. Everyone has failed. Everyone has failed. But what's more important is picking up your bootstraps and succeeding and continuing on from that. And it's a non-linear journey. I think Nancy Floyd, when I interviewed her in the book, she talked about journeys are non-linear. There's twists and turns, but it would be boring if it was linear, right? So my parting thoughts is just take a risk and join me in getting this book out there into the right hands, and encouraging folks to, this is our time in the renewables industry to finally get things done, and we have a mandate, and let's just do it. Don't hold back.
Powerful message that has so many positive implications for society, for all of us out there. So I love that. Tom, great to see you. Thank you so much for being on the show here today.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, John. And definitely thank you to everybody who listened in on a Friday afternoon, and hope you all have a good weekend.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks you for joining this episode of Meet the Author Live. Definitely check out Tom's book. We Took the Risk on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, wherever you get books online, and see his full interview at the creator community.
Go like that. I'm not really good at that. There we go. This is why I don't do TikTok, right?
But
there's a QRC code to the website too, if you want to take a picture.
Oh, beautiful. Go out and check out the episode. It's available now. I'm your host of the creator community, John Saunders. Thanks for joining us today, and keep creating.